We run a company called APS. We're based up in Dundee. Well, have been for the last 2 years. We originally came, we were based in Edinburgh, but we saw the light and moved so much nice. There's hills and things. What I want to do today is to spend a bit of time just telling you a bit about what APS does, and then describe some of the TSB programs that we've been involved with, including the first round in the Catalyst, and just a few kind of lessons that we perhaps learnt through our involvement with the TSB application process, and also the whole monitoring and payment system as well, which I guess you all have been anyway, so I won't linger too long on things which are perhaps obvious. So, what does APS do? We are a biocontrol company. We're developing innovative ways of replacing existing conventional pest and disease and control products. So, effectively looking at where conventional pesticides and chemicals are not doing a good job, or for various reasons they're no longer on the market, and where there are gaps in the market, where there are gaps in control, and developing technologies to fit these. The company's been founded by myself in 2004, and our business model is to support our activities through a combination of revenues, grants, and equity funding. Our core technology is based on novel antimicrobial compounds called bacteriophage, bacteria-specific viruses, which are absolutely everywhere. Although they've been exploited to a degree in the medical and veterinary world, they've not really been exploited in markets that we're looking at present. They're very safe, and I'll explain a little bit more about them for those of you who aren't aware of them in a second as well. And we have a lead product in this area called BioLyse, which is evolved first. It's a bacteriophage or phage-based food processing product for fresh produce. And just want to explain a bit before we get to the TSB thing about how we've come to develop this product. You might also know us for other work. We work in the field of applied entomology. My previous life was as the midge woman, people might know me as. Do a lot of work on midges in Scotland, and we continue within the company to do a fair amount of R&D on more applied entomological control. Some of you might have taken our product Smidge up the hills if you've been walking, and if you haven't, you should. So, a bit more about what we do. We develop and deliver environmentally friendly products for pest and disease control, and as I say, our lead technology is based on antimicrobials called bacteriophage. This is effectively a platform technology with lots of different market applications in anything from food processing, agricultural production, which we can talk about today, energy production, and mainstream pest control as well. We have an active entomological consultancy and R&D arm, which is really important for our TSB applications because it's providing revenues that we can use to match fund our grants. So we're not getting a grant and then waiting for 6 to 12 months until we've got match funding. We're producing, generating revenues within the company that can help drive our technology development with the help of TSB funding. And we do anything from going out into the Highlands and surveying estates for wealthy landowners that don't want midges on the estate, to a lot of laboratory development work for various companies. And as I say, we produced the Smidge, that midge insect repellent, which was launched 3 years ago. Currently sells about 100,000 units a year as well. So we've got a good revenue stream, which is key here. What I want to talk about today is our technology development, because this is where TSB has really helped us, and in particular our bacteriophage work. The first challenge to us pre-getting involved with TSB was bacteria which cause rots in fresh produce. Pathogens are responsible for all kinds of losses in fresh produce production, downgrades in the field, customer rejections. If you take a bag of potatoes home from Sainsbury's and they go soggy, they'll take them back perhaps, and the grower will get charged a £25 fine for that. If you're a big potato producer and you deliver a whole lorry full of moldy potatoes to Tesco depot, you'll be charged £1,000 to go and collect it. And this creates damage to your reputation and sales potential. So bacterial pathogens are a huge big issue in the fresh produce market. Current treatments are either not available, or where they are, they're ineffective, and there's so many restrictions on their use for pre-harvest that they're not particularly feasible. And consumers are seeking chemical-free solutions. The organic aisle in Sainsbury's is getting longer and longer every time you go in it, because there's a big push from the consumer, I think, to move away from mainstream chemical pesticides. So the challenge for us was to develop an innovative and sustainable bactericide which would be applicable to these fresh produce markets where bacterial pathogens were an issue. Technology, as I say, is based in bacteriophage. Probably most of you are aware of them. They're bacteria-specific viruses. They're very specific, usually down to the level of strain of bacteria, so there's no cross-contamination or non-target effects. They're very safe. Most of your glasses of water probably got millions of bacteriophage in them. Hopefully you won't drop dead before you leave the room. And they're sustainable. They keep themselves going in their target bacteria. Phage reproduce in two different ways. We're interested in what's called the lytic bacteriophage, where they actually destroy the bacteria within which they reproduce. Now, I'm not an artist, so please forgive the blue blob is a bacteria. The spiky thing is a bacteriophage. It will inject its nuclear material into the bacteria, turns the bacteria into a bacteriophage-producing organelle, little factory. Happens very, very quickly. These will get packaged up, and they're free to come out of the bacteria, killing it as they do, and then they'll go off and find a new little blue blob to infect. Very, very quick process. 24 hours with the right bacteriophage can clear out your community completely. And this is why the Russians at the beginning of the 1900s were really, really keen on bacteriophage as a replacement for antibiotics in the case of antibiotic-resistant infections. And there are a number of products in the market now in that sector. Advantages of bacteriophage, I say they're very safe, naturally occurring, usually occur where your bacteria are, they're very specific, they have no non-target effects. And in certain countries they've been given GRAS status, and generally agreed as safe in the US. There are organic approvals both in the EU and the USA for them as well. Scale-up processes are relatively cheap. We do all of our production at the moment in a single 2-litre fermenter in the lab, and that's making enough bacteriophage for half of the UK potato industry at the moment. And the right mix is highly effective, and you can also co-formulate with existing products. Importantly, they'll continue to work for a long time after chemicals have lost the potency. Most chemicals have a kind of quick hit effect, whereas bacteriophage continue to work whilst their target pathogen is present. So, about 4 years ago, we were given the challenge of our potatoes are rotting by the potato industry. What can you do about it with your technology? So we went through a very simple process of taking samples of potatoes, growing up the bacteria causing rots, and selecting bacteriophage from the environment which would kill off these bacteria. This work was partly supported by a Scottish Enterprise R&D grant, pre-getting involved with the TSB funding. The result was Biolise, and it's a first bacteriophage product for controlling soft rots on potatoes during packing. So this is the process immediately before they're putting their nice polythene bag, hot, sweaty polythene bag, and punted off to the supermarkets. The technology is quite easy, quick and dirty really. All the potatoes you buy in the supermarket are washed in a big, what they call a washer barrel. It's a bit like a washing machine. It starts off with clean water at the beginning of the day. By the time a few tons of potatoes have gone through it, it's absolutely filthy, but they continue washing the potatoes in it, and they continue getting dirtier and dirtier. They come out of this washer barrel, they get a quick spray of water, and then, this is a bit out of focus, there's a roller table which dries them off. We install spray bars halfway along the roller table, and we have our product coming out of these. It's misted on, so it doesn't make the potatoes wet, but it has enough product to just control them. And this is the kind of data you can get if you take potatoes pre our treatment up to 23.2% of them will rot once they're bagged, and we can get this down to less than 1%, which is a big commercial advantage to potato processing. This is what we like to see. These are potatoes which haven't been treated at all, taken straight out of this big washing machine. They go moldy very quickly. This is one which perhaps had just been rinsed with water, which some of the industry still do. And this is a potato 10 days after our treatment. You can see it nice and clean and dry. And you'll be happy to take that home and eat it. Importantly for the producer, they want to see their shelf life failures go down, but also the customer complaints go down as well. This is some data from one of our customers. This is a supermarket that takes potatoes from 3 different producers, suppliers, 2 of which use standard chemical treatments to control their rots, 1 of which uses our product. And the green sector is the proportion of customer complaints due to rots. So your wife's come to the supermarket saying, my potatoes are rotted. And these were Jersey potatoes, which sell for a premium price. So it's a really competitive market, and clearly our supplier here was very pleased that only 3% of their complaints were due to rots compared with these 2. So that's where we were about 3-4 years ago. We developed a product for the factory, but we wanted to see what other markets we could get our technology into. And we knew there were opportunities, but we didn't really have the means to do them. So first look at TSB funding was to see whether we could expand our existing technology in the field of rotting potatoes effectively. The question asked was, can we develop our BioLyse bacteria-based technology to actually target the source of the problem? Your bag of rotting potatoes isn't rotting because they're rotting in the bag, they're rotting because they're coming from the field with a level of infection. So what we want to do is to see whether our technology can actually target the growing potato and the potato going into store as well. So we applied to and were successful in the New Approaches to Crop Protection TSB program, and had a 3-year project from 2010. It ended in November this year. It's a collaborative project. We led it. We had an end-user commercial partner, one of the UK's large potato processors, an academic partner looking at formulation, and Sasa, David Kenyon, who's here, is a subcontractor who was able to do studies on quarantine bacterial pathogens, which are of concern in the UK as well. By the end of the project, we had successful proof of concept data that our technology could significantly reduce disease incidence in the field. And because of this, we followed this on with an application to the industrial research stage of the catalyst. In the December round, our expression of interest luckily has got through, and we'll be submitting our full stage application next month. And we've got, it's a collaborative project, and we've got 3 large commercial partners which represent UK's seed and rare industry. Second way that we've looked at TSB funding was to see whether we could develop our technology in a new market area. And again, we had a question asked by us by the industry, and we're interested in what we were doing with potatoes. So could our technology provide some kind of commercial benefit to a higher value fresh produce industry, and particularly, in this case, it was a bagged salad market. This time of year, your bag of salad that you buy from the supermarket has probably been shipped in from Chile or somewhere. It's been in a lorry for days and days and days, and it gets on the shelf, and you've got 1 or 2 days shelf life maximum for what goes kind of gooey and mucky. And this is primarily due to bacterial pathogens which are causing these rots. So it's a high value market, and the industry doesn't have any form of control at present. They use chlorinated water in their washing processes, and often the bacterial contamination pre and post washing process is higher at the end than it is at the beginning. So we've had some interest from the industry, some of the bagged salad companies, and we initially, because we hadn't done any work in this area, we applied for the 6-month feasibility study in the Nutrition for Life program, which was successful. We followed this on to a collaborative project in the food processing and manufacturing call, which we were successful in. This started last year. It's a 3-year project. effectively, we're working in salad processing factories such as this one. And we're starting from scratch as we did with potato issues. So which bacteria are responsible for salad spoilage? Can we isolate bacteriophage against them and formulate them efficiently to actually get them onto the leaves? At which point in this whole process is the best point of application to significantly increase shelf life to provide some commercial benefit to the industry. Last project I just want to briefly mention is looking at a completely new technological challenge with our technology. And this was tackling bacterial contaminants in anaerobic environments. Working in aerobic environments is relatively simple with bacteriophage. They are everywhere. Isolation processes and the scale is relatively simple. So we wanted a bit of a new challenge, and through some of our industry contacts, we looked at anaerobic digestion, which, as you'll be aware, involves complex microbial communities, some of which you want to be there and some of which you don't. In particular, we've been looking at some competitive bacteria which decrease the efficacy of the energy-producing bacteria, the pathogens, and they also have knock-on effects, these competitors, to the quality of the digestate, which is being sold on as a biofertilizer. And the industry is very concerned about these bacterial contaminants because it's having these effects. So we got involved with a company called Biogen, who are one of the UK's leading companies that produce AD units and build them on farms and for municipal applications, and discuss with them to see whether we might be able to apply our technology in an anaerobic environment. For this, it's a big risk for us because we've never worked on anaerobics before. So we've looked at the TSB Smart Program, which most of you will be aware is a 3-stage process. You can start off with a proof of market study to see whether, primarily a desk study, talking to people to see whether it's actually worth doing the project, proof of concept, and then go through the development prototype. For this project, we've had a proof of concept project, 18 months, which finished in December last year, to just see whether we could actually do anything here. It involved going around in digestates, nice smelly muck basically, isolating our target bacteria, and then trying to find bacteriophage in the environment against these. We then involved as a subcontractor, Biogen, who have a big lab, and they do all of their AD experiments in very high-tech buckets. Now, with buckets, scientists would call them something else, I'm sure, but we're calling them buckets. These trials are just finished, and we've got some nice data from that which shows that these bacterial competitors we were upset about, we can reduce them by targeting our technology. And more importantly, we increase the gas quality, so we've got a higher level of methane coming out of these buckets than we would have had otherwise. And also reducing the associated odour that comes out of them too. It's very early data, but because we're in the SMART scheme, we're now hopefully going to go on to the next stage of the SMART program and develop the prototype to see whether we can actually scale this up a little bit further at some point. So, the application process for TSB, I'm sure you've already put one in already. Just a few points here that I felt were important. Firstly, clearly check the project falls within scope. If it doesn't, speak to the KTNs to see which other programs are coming up. And I think your team is very important. So make sure your team's a good fit. There's no point in having partners who are going to be there just to be partners aren't going to do anything. Everyone needs to have a really good role and understand the process of the project, I think. So ensure that all of your inputs, particularly costs, are fully justified and explained. I think this is important for partners who haven't been involved with TSB applications before as well. They're not just getting a lot of money to sit on and then not do anything. They've actually got to justify what they're doing. There's an audit process at the end as well, of course. Exploitation is very key, so how are you going to protect the IP? How's it going to be split up? Mention route to market earlier, and return on investment. These are key things in your application to try and bottom out before you actually put it in. The guideline form is huge, but I think it's worth following it, going through, making sure you tick every box effectively, and KTNs can help you. And if it's a two-stage process like the industrial research stage of the catalyst, you'll get assessor feedback from 2, 3, sometimes 4 assessors. And that's very, very helpful, particularly towards the end of the feedback. It points out the weaknesses in the application. And we don't like to read those. I think they're probably the key thing to go away and have a think about. As we said already, there's lots of space in the appendices, so don't try and put too much technical information in the application form. Use the appendices to explain the technology, explain how the team's going to work together. A project Gantt chart is really important, and a realistic one, not just one you draw up on Excel because it fits boxes, but one that is really going to work. I think it was mentioned earlier, the collaboration agreement is going to be key within the project. So discuss this with your partners as you go along. Again, particularly people that haven't worked with a TSB project before. Finally, a few lessons that perhaps we've learned, perhaps the hard way in projects, is you've got to be very sensible about your financial forecasting. We forecast it every quarter. Make sure you're going to spend everything you said you're going to spend, especially if you're an SME. There's no point saying, I'm going to find the extra £6,000 for this 10 grand bit of equipment if you're never going to be able to do it. And remember, there's going to be an audit at the end as well, which you'll need to justify your spend. Second level plan, which you have to draw up after your project is successful. This is very key, and it needs to be very detailed, milestones and deliverables. Split the project up into as many milestones as you can within each work package, I think, because it's easier for the monitoring officers then to see if the project is on track. If you only have 2 or 3 milestones within a 3 or 5 year project, it's much harder to actually, for someone out from outside, to see where the project's going, because it's quite easy for partners to actually hide things sometimes. I think that they don't want the monitoring officer to see. Projects we've been involved with, our monitoring officers have been really good, and they've made us, which has been a bit of a pain, they've made us update the second level plan after each quarterly meeting, which I think focuses in mind, gets you and keeps you on track. If you're the lead partner, make sure that all your partners understand the claiming system. Keep good records of your quarterly meetings. They really need that information at a later date. And finally, if you've got issues, raise them with your monitoring officer as they occur. So say you want to switch some money between cost categories, etc. Everything is usually possible, but it needs to go through the proper channels to enable that to be done. And finally, how has TSB funding helped us? We're a small SME, so we don't have a huge R&D budget or a huge man-force. So I think it's successfully enhanced our R&D processes and our technology development. It's certainly increased our R&D spend. We've IPR creation, we've got 2 new patents out of the couple of projects that I've described today. I think it improves your commercial focus because even as an SME or certainly as an academic, it's lovely to bumble along in the lab. You've got some grant money and it's great, but you've really got to get the product out there. And working with bigger industry partners in particular, I think, does improve this focus. Gives you targets and deadlines to meet. For us, it's opened up new markets and particularly new partners in a wide range of sectors which we would never have met had it not been for the TSB money. And finally, job creation is really important within any industry, but particularly in the SME. So for us, TSB funding has helped with job creation and also securing the existing posts that we have all around the job. That's everything. Thank you.